Yak yoxatini, shtakat Johan. Ach tu yak wuchin khasati yak zoom kak. Haya ak aya zoom. Yisat khoa. Nashle khoa. Nashle. Wuchin yuk atutle atk. Ya yidat ichtite yich. Gwash nask tag shu hichen. Gwal deich ka ashu. We amletsin nik hachut uagut. Aka away. Klesh wujin chawstien, klesh wush kanach tuta aard. Gwell deich gawch anach, klesh gedein aya wush kanach tuta aarden. Gwell ye wutien, chakeid ye tu u. Gwell kleidushu, chachus wush dach ye tusene. Ya yidet choa, gwell gone wush kanach tuta aarditsu. Ya chutan, celebration, awa yaw dutzachich. Klein awa atleichi. Has our leich. Achu we new klein has our shot. Has wood neich ko a itch. Ja, chat aya kachwa ak. Konachoe gedein a dat ye jechwani. We new klein. Amlitzin. Amlitzini. Zini? Chatza. Achu sani kachaya kakwatu. Anyasha ha shawe achina kawanik. Hu away. Awasa. At amblitzinen nik. Okay. Wait, notes kachaya kakwashahid. Itcha. Yiwakshi kekakasane a dekatashid. Ja, kliatke. Yakdat owe. Utu ich. Yakdat de. Ja, achlilk. Ka achtachan. One kanins ye away a day. Wush kadutli. You wuya. Wa aya achlilk. Ka achtachan. Ye away. Nakishan kasekut. Ka astut taki. Katratio cocktail side at the Hednam. Kluknach at the Hasseti. Konachawet uch ark. Kachonach wuch in Hannes teaching. Ḥukach at the Katluknach at the Konachu. Ya Artwasagu wakshi kakosane. Ayahai. Achu akach shahid. Kauch shahid. Achu ach shatawe. Akau shahid. Ja, kallits ikwa at dayet a genke hasu at aya iwakshi ye osane. Kallach tuash gukan hasu tuye ti his. Akwa weku. Kall achan ye hasu tien. A joyach tuasagu yisitini. Kawasa at une. Wits Kall nasa ayach kuge. Ya hakustiiten. S'ach ka. Shadakuchu. Tsach yatayach. Shadakuch. Yakshe. Shadakuch again. Shadakuch. Aka awe yatatsu. Yata. Kleich dech nastachun kejen kleidushu dachadushu. Kashisikwa at. Helkedein hosaku ata. Hun Shadakuch sawe. Wush katachak. Gwashkewe kun guchsa. Achas shulhi. Chak away ye away. Putustien. Ja, je dat gelijk. Klasje achoti. Gwash waits ach ja. Dechandid tag. Ye away a katago. Gwash naskand tag. Techaji aya we yidat yacheti museum chan ko hajiyeti yata tsukunach chagudach ai hast du ai at we telkedena dat yu kwatan tellach tosh gu qacht dark yersene ja hast du ai dat wat ku ik ko a kone aya ja yandes hich qa tu wasaku qa wakshi yich aya kaki has yersene hast du at yata ich kijk de hin qewne ha ina kawni ka at tunach ja har ko has yaw de hun ja ha ya de aqa awe ya qa kol has husetin kana khawe da tu de tan qa has qa khatu letish akho a tel wujin yata kwali twasago atigu di an ade atwud de hun ya adakhaya yegachtus ne shata kuchu yata kit gush tech kunach chagudach tech tasyach yati tech hisani kheqa dakuna qudzati yata taich dakun wul qudzati sahu kach atunach aya kashyaushe ish katkhitsil kok we threading kindiklinach you talk announce huh tell it ya qawe hasu ai take at ach zirpazeti has it was go yak ewutien Gwaslisitiniata ku at du ku wush ayakutsatiakach anushi in has cool gawan adachaya eka we at kunachawe katutlitsini at klein skashnik kaka sa kutsati at tunach adatawe you has kautla at kawakshi Gwash konea ya yagachtusahich konea yagachtusahich like konea yagachdus hich wait kawakshich aya kunach dak hasa kawanik has du skashnik yewe tashiden kakwanik ya dat ya decho yisetin has du kuiki aya kluknach adi has du kani yan yag ka gwantan hukwa yan washa daklawedi chuganedi achoy has our shot has to atu eqonet khanai tawasago kinde has our shot khawakshi chitlewe atati qabtla atk kwashwe kha tlenk has now ya has to atu kha shach has our ti tsah yewe has to kla ya takhi wush takhiyan akhu ayuhan qeqa yan kach has yisaku wasar tu yake wuch ich wutu de shi wega akhu ahanach sati kun tak sakshwe tlku ike ya wuski achwe hatushe ishan wan qanins ku ik tunach aya tunik aya jikach tunak kalla atina kha otiwan qanins Gwashisaku tuj erhiti ata hasa kaushahi ni gwatl hasa wuni gwatlayak tujachiti at ye awe khwa ach taag gwalkhanachawe tunik kha khat u gut kakigi ya has to gin. We hootsie da ye osene. We tooch. Wash yatayach. Wash yatayach. Aka has to yak aya ye has aus neen yatayach. Has aus satin. Aka has aus wudutsuku. Has to tuwu niku. Ye awa yang kalchakuta yiwakshi eke kwasane. Ya yidat ko ach tuwasaku. Yiyukatangi ko achi. Da satsu yituwasaku dat yukagachtusha ati. Kwal yige at kwal yegu ginki at tuwasaku ko achi ko. Khataya. Khatake. Yatatsu. Yikuiki. Kwal kuikaya. Koneyaya yakwasahih. Kwal shupna khadi ai. Yikuiki aya. Konel kanaye adusa. Yakaya haswokin. Yikuiki. Kwal ha ai. Wekuik. Ha kuiki. Which the katas. Dalkakinach guests. You do a sock. Shesha kati se wakakak yikuiki. Ye awe ade awe kuik. Yardudzahihi. Ye awe hatuati. Shukwa we at kawakshiki. Yardudzane. Nadak kuk. Ya achtuasaku yisaku chaltakatwe ani. Tashtashugu we kuik. Wanqanins yakdat. Ade yawahi. Chakudye de chayikuking. Kir. Khuna. Natasihini. Chaguksa. Jayi ide kakponik. Yin kakponik dasachwasaku da. Chayekuking. Ach outletu. Pachklein. Kichne. Ya kajakte. Klein ku'u da the way you has kawutlatkin. Wasat kakponik ku'ik. Well, chak away. Chak. We do. We think it ani. Need kakaya. Has to hit ki. Hit clank. Klein ku'u has ku'u ik. Ku'ik you do a sak. Hit kakaya with the hun. We use ka. Hu away kone awe ik. You do a ik. You do a ik. Ku'ik kaya yak. Yakachtus hi kaya ha hiti ik. Aka awe chakut ani dachtsu. Ye ewech wa ach chakut ani dachawe. Has awe ka. What has to yagu ya has ausatin. Angu na yach ausatin yata yach. Ka shad de nakri. Guj kataya has clean. Kal has to tuash go we yak khank. Wash at the wood aya has to khande aya na koch kal has to tuash go. Adat ye has aus ni. Ye has uti. Eka klei nach Wash ta igi. You do a sock or ta igi. Kach information runner. Ta igi. Has to in ye wutien. Kun yak sawe has to ani dach. Shukwaya. Has to toasaku wush gate has with the kochu. Has trakwa wuz. Wanach saya ha an. Gudach sawe ye yagu. Has kwa. Oh, sheet kadach. Hunadach chakuksa. Wanach saya ha ani de ye kochu. Yaku ik aya. Hayi Ajoyake hayati. Akawe wuch in. Has yawa goo. Wuchin wayak. Jakut ani dachyak hoa. Klet has de tua oshke. Kuch u kuchu. Was te ayayati. Jadasa. Was just gone aya. Kesh hudlan we hit. We click we heen. Kagu owe. We an dach kagu. Yak data ya. Haswu art. Ka has awashan. Wasa has litzin. Atlen ku a yikt was kleka nach. Kinde has awashat ya has to yago. Ke has ausi in. We ikayakte aya has wo good. Ya de peace a kanach aya has wo art. Ya kaya kashtige nach. Yinde yan has ausi in. Hatu wasagu kunachoe klesh wasak wati yago. Ach chawe. Hade aya you to sein. Ye a wetling get hosti. Aka has to in a kawanik dark hitty sawe. A yich haska kwache. Yach wash qanak te di in. A joye nachi sati. Jaku dani dach wash kick sati. Jadakasa. Aka awe wash kuich yakwahi a iti ayagi. Seek tin. Ja, seek de kedi tin. Has schoutlets seek. A dato you has schoutlets atken. Wasa atkakone. Gwell kuich aya kwahi. De kat ku. Has aus ku wasa atkakone. We just the kat. We nach sati gwell kagwantan. Gwell shangu kedi. Wuj in you has schoutlets atken. Has du nach sati. Gwell kleinach we na kani. Has du in you chawal atgen. Wasa atkakone. A iti ayagi. Ajoy kuich kone yaneki. We na kani. Aus ku. Data tiner sahasyati. Yata kayata. At u kawakshi keudusneyi. One panins yukatunk. Wasa do sakabat. At kukedi. At kukedi. Yadu yuwakshi kekakosani. At kukedi. Gwash at kukedi tin. Yach at qaku zu yudosak. Yach at qaku. Yadu. We tlerke yakta. Khat has khat ewa wuz. Yachat qaku aga etwati. Yu khayatani. Kawakshik. Shukwa aya. Khagak. Itcha. Kakhwaak. Yach at qaku aya. Khoshayech yatayach. Atri yakdat yahawutien. Chagawe kunahu. Yesh lausatin. Kinde awe. Yeudusene we a klini. Ausatin we yai. Kinde aya. Haswukak. Aka atlen. Yao hasawaha. Yeshe waji. Yeshutu watan. Ach tuchlichisha yekdeo dakini. Ajoya yekdeo dakin. Chitle aya yek leut with lahash. Kanekayo ik. Atuski kakanachan gahashi. Atuski kakanachan gahashi. Ye eweku hasawa ach. At ييش دخوي ودقنا إدخ أيانا خياتي ويش كشني تس جيكو جنكي قنيا وخيخ ويقويخ أقاق وحقنيت قناي حقويخي يهس يخسقها يوا هتو تيجو ويا ويش كنديو دقين يتو نيجوتين أنت إيدي أخيك وأوس إيتليني ديك قوتي يوا كان الشيشة غيتي سأخي أكلين أتقزتي وقويك دان جاء توسكو داتيو قتل أتكي شوخوا أقا جاكوتا تيجني واساي تووجو هان أكلين أتقزتي خسكو وقويك دان قاخ دشي أتو قاوقشي كي أتو تني قاقاك وانقلينز أتكوكيدي قش يخ أتقاقو أقا أوي قاخ دشي وانقلينز داكون وانقلينز ناس قدوشو قش ديخ وانقلينز و كيك ناخ ستيدخ أقا هستو كانيان هستو آي أقا أوي كندي كيكختو هوك و وتساقاتين أكترتي وقت ينشو كترتي وقت جديخن قا إدخا هوي داكون دهين يد كيقا أوي هسو هوك أقا قش يد إخوي كيقا داكون دهين يوسني داكون دهيني شتسين تن كيكختو هوك أقا أوي قني و كان كتسيكي وان قنين زيتي وساقو قش ديخا قزتي كان كتسيكي كيخ شخوا جداقسا وشخوا أتخاي ويسيك أكخ جايقو جنكي جلتكتت أقاوي قنش وينكان كيان قش قنيت قناي كندي أيا هسا وشا قش ديخ قاساقو أيا قني هس كيو إخ قش هستو ساي أقا قيدي أجوي هاتو وسكو هشاقون هستو قيدي قختو تي ويتخا إدخا لتكتقو هستو قيد دو تي هستو قيخ دو تي أتخا سقو قاوو أيا قنخوي قاخ تشي لتزي وانقلينز جو هوجي قاخ كلين جاء دوسا أو قنخوي دو إقا يلتيش قنخوي ككي قاخ هستو جيس إدخا قنيا ككي نيخ كخ شتيني إدخ أوي يا ويتو جاختي أدوسا هستو قويخ ستي شبنخ أدي هستو كانيان أدخي هس أو أوز هستو ينيغو وينيغوت هاو قلتيش هوج أقايقا
مرتيش
Dance questions, additions.
Gonna why yikua atsa gao?
Oh, one qanis jinkat qad akun gaqaq one qanins tlayqa gaqaq we ye awakhu aqwash qiq tatsit gawsan tlaye haswati we qui tu tatqwa suqneya wahi Wait a koa. Don't go. Kone yaw hich. Gwash dachadushu go wait to tot. Hooch a joy jen kat ka. Nusk go kak. Kat koa. Santa Fe dach with the keen. A iti I. Click kliatke. Katritze kwasatusa. Day before. A joy konachwe question. Kajin go. Taj chat the juk. Yehoe achsha. Yete. Aka oe kechtekit. Kwasati. Well, achkani yan. Yeah, iPhone team. Ayahai has. Ach yahai has a kaushikit. Atchashilkatan.
Quasatine, Shakiatsku, Udsk, Ta, Shayet, Ik Katsaknain,
Oh.
Nadak, Shayatsku, with Wudek, Wudek,
We achwa has to adu. We museum. Yidachaya. Yodutsen ku ikis. It was a OT museums, but achtua sagu gwash. Eka at Kashatwash good cook to ye in the teach. One canins. Oh, gosh, after was we sitini take a papa quashi. Chishuko at Yawaki one canins. Oh, Tash. Oh, yeah, do a cockashot. Chalk, Panachu chalk. Cockashot, I away yata. At your way, do shakik you do zene. Do sai, do chalk, dach sai, I. Kuzi Atlen Kuaya Haswugach Jutaya has Awastini. Okay, that was the last. Promise. That's questions. We only got to like the first part of it too, because that gets up to the past the first meal. Would need 14 more hours to talk about what else happens at Ekuik, but it's an amazing process. And there's kind of like this small handful of people who just keep them going. And so I learned how to do some of this stuff from in Ḳukahaa. They had, well, I guess it goes back. They were having some kawlchitchen ai, walisaku, nak dakahiti. Ayechoe kusanech, ayechoe tsukoa, kuwana. One kalins, kasiye atwaduach. Morg ayakutsati, a kuku. Washwan kalins, utitsatini kasiye at yautahun, has yautahun, tsike kawu. So they'd see ghosts and hear things sometimes in the basement of Ţakhtit, Mount Edgecombe Hospital. So they started having a cleansing ceremony. I think it was every 2 years, maybe, I can't remember. And you walk through and you'd say some things, do some things, and then there'd be a meal afterwards. And then the next day, there'd be a community Ḳukahaa. It was really neat because they would appoint Nakani in training. And so you had a chance, if you were learning a lot about the culture and the language and stuff, to be a Nakani. But it's at a public thing, so it's like not one clan hosts it, so there's a little bit less pressure. And there's a council of the Nakani clan who are there to tell you what to do. And so the whole thing is usually, it's very scripted. It's very, one thing I was talking about is a long time ago, they'd come in the day before and they'd get sent to which houses they were going to stay in. And then every clan would meet and have tobacco ceremonies and just plan everything out. This is going to happen. Then the Nakani would be going back and forth. Be like, okay, these guys are doing this and you guys are going to do that. So that it was all pretty much scripted out before people started. And what was wild is nothing was written down. They would just remember all the processes and what people were going to do. And then when it comes to fun time, what kinds of things would be done there and what kinds of things needed to be stated and affirmed. Um, at this one, they brought out several songs that had been probably forgotten, but they got them back from the De Laguna collection. And they're from Ďakuta, so it was really fun. Okay, anything else?
No, I just want to say that, first of all, I felt really bad that I wasn't able to go this time, but I was glad to see that there were so many young families going so that their children could have that experience. And I know there was a lot of people there. It was pretty crowded, but I was glad to see that. And I remember as a young girl being able to go with my grandmother and, for the days before, well, they planned everything and decided who was going to say what. And it was the thing that I think we forget about was it was so organized that people knew what to bring out so that there was balance, no one, when we put out our at'u on the table, there was balance. It was discussed, and I'm going to bring this, then somebody else wants to bring something reciprocal that, balances it, matches it. And I think, just like the songs too, they're going to use this really heavy song. So we want to make sure we have a song to be able to hold it up. And I think all those conversations and listening to the elders do that is such an important part of the, what happens before the kuik is almost as important as what happens at the kuik.
Yeah, exactly. And they used to, I think a long time ago, you would seat your hosts back by the screen in the house, top floor by the khin. That's where the guests were. And then the hosts were on the top floor by the door. Then you had some bigger people who were along the sides, and all the kids were in the middle. And so that all the words would be going over them and stuff. And it takes a lot. Like, so here's but because there was a couple of school teachers who were like really involved in planning this, so a big part of it was for their mother. There was like so many kids there, like a bunch of the families from the TCLL program were there, and a bunch of other folks were there, and so a lot of those kids went till 4 or 5 in the morning. Some of them were still, and they would take turns singing songs. So like Mount St. Elias would sing songs, and then there's a couple of folks from Ţkēki from Huna and Daljini from Ļkut. They take turns singing songs, and Yaktushi from Shitka. And then the TCLL kids started singing songs, and people were just fired up seeing those kids song leading and just going for it in front of the place was packed, and so it was really neat and it's really good to see. And I think Ḳu'iq needs to be. We talked years ago about having language Ḳu'iq and other stuff like that, and I think it'd be good because then you've got kind of a practice Ḳu'iq, right? Because there are certain things that are supposed to happen in a certain order. And one of the things I said earlier that I think is very important, so Walter Soboleff was a pretty big deal, if you didn't know. And he was at a Ḳu'iq sitting with someone who was also a pretty big deal. And Ḳajakti leaned over and said, it's not correct what's being done here. And so there was some kind of error. Sometimes you forget a step or you do something kind of the wrong way. And so he said to this person who was younger than him, because he was like, he lived to be 102, so pretty much everybody was younger than him. It was like there was an old guy, he lived to be like 100 in Skag when he used to walk around and say, "Hey, young fella," and he's saying that's like 80-year-olds. It's like, yeah, like we're all young to you, man. And so Ḳajakti said to this other person who was a clan leader, he said, they're not quite doing this part correct. Go tell them. Go help them fix it. And then that person leaned over and said, "Hastil Ḳu'iq aya yak." So this they're Ḳu'iq. Like so at Ḳu'iq there are things that are shagas, and some of them are lights. They're forbidden things. Throwing food or gifts to people is really bad manners. If you're a guest, declining anything is also bad manners. So if you don't eat the kandigwat, and they give you the kanikwatl, you take the kanikwatl. And you try a little bit, and you could. It's up to you what you do with it. Stash it, hand it to someone, but don't say no, thank you, because then you have committed a major offense. And so, but one of the other things that is also a major offense is telling someone what to do at their pu'ik and telling them that they're doing it wrong. Even because they vary from community to community, clan to clan. And it is not your business to tell them. If they ask you, if they come say, how do you do this again? Go ahead. If you're in a Akani, go ahead. If you're at that head table, maybe, but probably not. But if stuff is just happening, and you, no matter what, you say, oh, I got to help them with this. Like, and so, but those are some things, maybe you see it and you sort of share with some folks privately, because no one wants to be embarrassed. It's a public thing. It's very, very sacred, and it's so much fun too. It's not like a super high pressure thing, but sometimes it can be. Okay.
You're right. There's always like every week has a different thing that they're trying to make sure that they address, whether it was like, when we had Hashagun, we were still dealing with some of our ancestors who had passed at that week. And so we wanted to make sure that the first thing we served was the last thing that they ate, and people were like, what, we're having birthday cake first, things like that.
Be prepared to have it turn on a dime. I have heard jokes and we're laughing and laughing, and then they call my name and boop, it's serious again. Boop, stand up.
And if you have a quiet moment of reflection, or maybe you fell asleep, someone will have footage of it. So.
That looks like almost snoring to me.
I was out. I was 100%. There was a good hour where I was out for almost the entire hour. It was just not gonna happen. So, but I was trying to find like quiet places to, but it does happen.
You were cradling your child and protecting them.
I had to sleep so he could sleep. He was already way out though.
Dasaway akakuziti yuchatang. Is that how you would say like protocol too?
Yeah.
Law protocol.
Words that people live by, right? It could a day of dutsuhihi. Yeah, sometimes you could say that. How they make it into a thing in public.
Yeah, something I always wondered, but I was always scared to ask about is even in like my own community about like which ku'is like you could go to. Like I know you can go to ones when you're like the opposite moiety, but just in terms of like it being in a different community, how do you like go about that?
Adusa awaik ku'ik dekpakun. Whoever's invited will go. But and this is another thing that differs from community to community. But basically, if people say like, "Hey, I didn't see it at the ku'ik," you might say, "Oh, I wasn't invited. It's okay." So like a long time ago, that's how I think those things work. But then sometimes it's a bit more of an open door kind of for all the people type of thing. But then the reason why it gets a little sensitive is because you might not have enough for everybody in the world. And so it does put a lot of pressure on the clan if it's just an open door thing. And so usually like you wait for the invitation. And it's usually the clans who need to figure out who should be invited. And then the Nakani is the one who should be calling and making that invitation. A long time ago, they used to stand on the roof and shout out who was invited, whatever. The other thing is if you go, you're supposed to stay to the end. And so just get yourself ready. Like I had a flight and I had a bunch of stuff that just led to some kind of sleepless nights. And so I knew going in, I was like, oh, I'm going to be done for. I'm going to be cooked. And but you do your best, right? So, and then the other thing is just know generally what your role is. Like, if this is your clan hosting it, better not be sitting very much. I better be putting in that work. And that goes for people who are adopted, so like when I see people get adopted, I just say, Okay, when kuik happens, get to work. But then also like, and it gets really interesting, right? Because so let's say the guests are eagle or wolf, right? Because it's a raven clan hosting it. That's why you have a Nakani who's the opposite clan, because you can't tell them what to do. But the Nakani is the same clan as them, so you can stand up and say, "Hey, can you guys be quiet? We're trying to do this part. We're announcing the money. Keep your conversations quiet," because they could say that because it's their own people. But a raven couldn't get up and say, "Can we be quiet while we're doing this?" Because then it's now we've got another situation. But yeah, that's usually how it works, is if you're invited. But it does vary from community to community how that really works. That's what I was taught, though. Not invited, don't go. But also, and it is sensitive too, because you might have someone who the ku'ik is for, and maybe they didn't like a certain person. I mean, it gets a little. So usually we just sort of don't get it, don't get the call, don't go to the thing. Good question.
And then sometimes somebody won't go to a kuik and they say, well, I wasn't invited. And the host will say, well, when we invite somebody from your family, that means all of you.
Yeah, and usually that's kind of clarified too. Like they might say, Satuk wa right? So that like they should be clear too, right? Because sometimes like, yeah, if someone just invites you, that doesn't mean like your 8 siblings get to go, and but sometimes it does. Again, that's varies from, it's complicated, but then it's up to the, and there's a lot of things, there's a lot of pressure that falls on the Nakani, and sometimes there's a group of them, but if they're doing their job, everybody knows.
There was there's been several kuiks in Huna in the last month, and I was at an elders lunch here in Juneau last month, and I heard a lady across the table from me said, yes, they told us to tell every Chukanadi that they're invited. So I don't know. And that lady was Eagle. So, I bet you they're talking about that coho party in Huna.
Wow. Jeez. Okay, and we also were talking before we started recording about voting. That's what I was told. And so, literally means throw the names of the people, throw them, right? And so when you vote for someone, you're throwing their name, which is not, we just said like, don't throw the food at the kuik, but throw somebody's name at election time. Nothing's being violated then. But if you go like to the verb dictionary, and you just look up vote. So you do see desai. So that would be written short. Desai, their name, would do waqir. Both of these would be short here. And then they voted for them, right? And then you say, they voted against me. So now this starts to set up some things. So if you put someone's sai in front of it, that means you're voting for a person. And then this case would be a possessive pronoun, gay day. So gate or gay day. So it's gay, but it likes to always have a suffix. It's usually T or the DE. That means it has kind of 2 general meanings. It means like things encountering or things in opposition. Sometimes it's a neutral thing. They met up with each other. And sometimes it has to do with being in disagreement. They are having an argument. So would be thinking differently. And it kind of depends on context. So in this case, they voted against me. And then you could also say things, whatever I wanted, the thing that I wanted, they voted against it. Then I think if we just look up, it's like you go up in the search bar and hit vote. So then you see a couple of things. So to restore confidence in, to give a vote of confidence, atuch yaududzahanen. And so here, yaududzahan would be a verb for people stood it up. Like if you had a house post or something and you stood it up, that would be the verb for it. And then this un is, we talked about this suffix the other day about like restoring something. It's the opposite of ak, which is to remove something. So it looks like, I haven't studied this one a whole lot, but you can add it. I don't think it affects the verb too much because we still see this yaududzahan would be what that verb is in the perfective. And then atuch has yaududzahnaqen. And here we see han singular, naq plural, right? And then to be restored to normal. Okay, so we're doing voting. I'm not going to do all that stuff. But so this doesn't have to do with voting at all. It just means to be. But if you got put back, if like you lost the election and then you won the next one, this would work. Like they stood me up inside of it. They restored me standing inside of it. That's how it works. Let's see. Then we get this for vote.
What would you say if you were gonna say native the gate? The
Oh.
gate.
They voted me out?
No, like native vote, it's a term always being like how would you?
Oh, I'd say
What would you want? Huh?
shikatquu qasaku kanaqiq. So indigenous peoples vote.
Got it.
So kanaqiq. I got that from Ruth Demmer because I was trying to get different, and there's going to be slightly different forms for some of these as well. Then I feel like there was one to raise hand for, I think that they got it listed as voting.
One time Johnny Marks told me when I was trying to get that phrase, he said something about make your mark.
Oh, wow.
Or he made his mark.
That would be, I wonder if it is under a mark. So you do have this, and so that, because like it depends on the process too, because we're also saying because I remember I was a delegate for Tlingit and Haida, and they gave, I guess I should say Tlingit Kina, or maybe Tlingit Kahatas. And we switched from paper voting, which would be, to make a mark on it. And we switched from that to a little remote control. And so that was which was to push a button with your finger. And so, yeah, sometimes we talk about that, like that process of voting, but just generally, so I'll put that on the notes. I think I had that one there too. Hold on. So this is the name that Anashahash gave to COVID, At Amlatsinen Nik, which is probably high tone At, which is it's the sickness that was hiding in different places. And then, so we've got ka, the possessive, saku, their names, and then you'd have kana, so that being na conjugation, and then also having ka in front of it, which is interesting, because I think you could also say ka saku naqiq, but I don't know exactly what the differences would be. But I've heard both of those, and I just went with, I think Ruth was the one who answered first. And so sometimes when you get like different answers, you just sort of say, well, I heard this one first, so I guess I'll go with that. Other thoughts or questions on any of that stuff?
Would you, I thought you had a phrase for indigenous people,
Oh, yeah.
and maybe type that for me. Thanks.
And then, so I would probably, and again, like we put the exclamation point on some of these, and that means, for Tlingit, that really just means it's a command or a prohibitive. You're getting into the do or don't sort of category. We do generally use it though if we're saying somebody was shouting something, but we haven't, I guess that kind of makes sense when you see it. but Ţukatqu is the original people. That name also comes from Anyashahash. It's a good namer of things. Okay. Back to prefixes. Now you know how to vote. Okay. So let's go back. So we got up to here, up to the pink. Now let me just kind of recap. These are the main areas we're looking at: the green, the blue, the pink, the gray, the red, the purple. And as we're moving back forward, talk about what they do. We did all these green ones, right? So we've got not, very, really or real, too much, lost, towards, starting, to completion, returning backwards. And then just a reminder, you get yun for perfectives, for commands. You get yunde and kuchte for futures and progressive imperfectives. So kuchte kuchte, they are going to come back, or I should say kuchte guchte gut. Sorry, it's got a guchte. They're going to come back. Kuch is one. I don't know how to do it. I guess maybe I can make these tiny or something. Do a little tiny plus d. I should note the ones that go like kuch should put the verb into plus d. I'm not going to say it's wrong if it doesn't, but I would say that's something that has been kind of one of those sliding things. Like you'll just hear people say kuch gut, which is fine. Like I understand what they're saying, sure, but I think the rule is supposed to be kuch gut, so it pushes it to go plus d. I would also note that ade is towards, but it also has special meanings when paired with yeah. Okay. So we did those, and then we got to second page, and we get out into the open, out to sea. A couple other definitions. I'm just going to put two of them on there. These are the most common ones. Inland or into shadows. These three along, upwards, and downwards being the three that are used for progressive imperfectives. This is what will be used for all zero and na. This will be used for all ga. This will be used for all qa. For futures, you also need to have k if it's ga, ye if it's qa. Nothing for zero and na. Then we go down, we get to and fro. This one is also used a lot with the repetitive imperfective that has a k in the end. You, kaya, tunk. Then you have you and ye with high tones, which are both thus, but you use you when the thing that you're talking about comes right before the, kone you khattiwasak, achawe ye khattiwasak, kone. So if that's thing you're kind of giving specifically, like the name of something, exactly what was said, technically if it appears right before the verb, it goes with you. If it's separated from the verb coming after it, or you say kone, ya, ach, kak, oy, yekhattuwasa. And well, I don't know if I could do it that much, but usually like it just kicks to the end. Okay. Then we have our last group, chush, to the self, to each other, third person human plural, non-human plural, and also distributive, like all the houses are along the lakeshore. So those are all the greens, and there are more than that for sure. But the goal here with this sort of game was to put the most common ones there. Right? These are the most common ones. You could like have running aground and a bunch of others. Guggy, So that gets us here. So you do have 4 spots where a thematic prefix can pop up. The ones with the most variety are in part 2. And there are more than these, but these are the most common ones. But you could technically have 4 thematic prefixes. More than 2 is really unusual. So starting at the left side, what is қ. There's an object one, but this is the thematic prefix.
Weather?
It is used for weather verbs, but it doesn't specifically mean weather.
People?
That's the object pronoun, which would be blue. But you can only have one of them. You can't have қ. So if it ends up being, if there's a verb that has q on it, you have to use qa. Qa qudzati. People exist. But it's in qudzati, qudzage.
The thing that surrounds you?
Yeah. So we call it the aerial, and it means, it kind of means it's like some given space. So it's not really super specific in terms, like sometimes it's kind of, it's just, I don't know, it's, we did some things like, I do think that's where you get kunach and kudach and kut and kude. But as far as once you see it on a verb like this, then you tend to get talking about some given area or sense of space.
Renee,
Ah,
is that just a physical area, space, or does it also refer to time?
I think it's usually a physical space, but it's a really good question because it pops up on things like kudzage, like ya kudzage, to be intelligent.
So is that the same root as in kusti, our way of life surrounding us?
Yes. So it's on kudzati, which means to exist. So
Oh, wow.
Kudzati in the noun form becomes kusti, which in the possessed noun form becomes ha kusti.
Okay. Kulchish.
Ah. Okay. And there's 3 ka, so I'll take any of them. But yeah. What?
Right.
On top of.
Yeah, so there's, that was coming. This one, the first one though, is comparative. So whenever you have ka, the first one's usually, it's going to be comparative. And we'll, because, well, I guess, I don't know if you can get ka. I don't think you can. I don't think the language will allow it. This one, I guess I should have made a note. It usually pairs with the Irialis. So it likes to, they're pals. They hang out all the time. Okay, these ones should be easier. J. Not ja. J.
Is that hand?
It's hand. I saw a visual for it. Yep. What about t?
Inside?
Yeah. Sa. It's 2 things, but it's mostly one of them. Most common.
Voice.
Voice or
Was
Face. Neck.
throat.
so it is the base of the neck right here. This is your sa. That's where you have the word sate, sa'at, and sakate, saka'at, like a bib. Sadatai, sa-da-tai, warms up around the base of the neck. That's apparently where you get cold. Khatse-wa'at. You're cold right there. And when sa meets perfective, it becomes say. So say is not a separate one. It's just this one plus the perfective. And we'll see another one that does that. But I think they might be the only ones. Sh. Ask questions if you got them. We're just going to keep going. Sh.
Nose or point?
Yeah, well. Da. I heard it.
Around.
Around. Out. Ka.
Mouth.
Yes. Mouth or an opening. This is the second one that will change to che. That A to the E sound, it's just something that you're gonna see. Just like dak, eo, adi becomes dak, a, we, di. Okay, okay. Which is interesting because I think dak, eo, at, e. In the middle, you have eo moving from ei to a, and at the end, you've got adi going from a to ei. So in Dutch Loidi, you have that vowel switch going both directions. Grandfather's people are just messing with the vowels. You go that way, you go that way. Sh.
And
And correct. And is a little different than the rest of these. I'll just say that. So we call athematic. And so what it tends to do is there are some verbs where it's just built into there. Oudagon. Right? And I was looking at just one today as yet outlets. I can't remember. Okay, I'll look it up. It was to frown or scowl at something. The other thing that it does is there's not all verbs, but there are some verbs where you could put it in there to lock up the object spot. So the classic one would be achloon. Achloon, they are hunting. If you want to say they are hunting rabbit, like a sunny klein, Elmer Fudd, ach, chloon. So the goes away. It just, well, I guess that would still be achloon, sorry. Achloon, because I am hunting rabbits. That would switch to chachloon. Because even if it's switched to an object, you have 3 on 3, so it has to be anyway, so it's a bad example. Okay. Oops, I don't think I finished this. Okay, so then we have horizontal. No, hold on. I did these wrong. Okay. Let me finish my business. Okay, I gotta watch. Adeo anasi yedusni. You gotta watch sausage get made. Okay, so I did. Where are you going? Copy. Yes. Okay. So I do have here, I'm gonna erase all these. Focus from number 3. We have ka, and we have ya. And then underneath it, we have ka. And then there's nothing on these ones. So we'll make them blank. So these ones you do have round, vertical, horizontal. So you can have ya and ka, but you couldn't have round and vertical because the vertical makes it round, or I guess, I don't know, you get kind of one or the other, right? And so you can have 4, but it's very unusual. 3, maybe. Okay. The only one that I know of that can fully contract would be this ka right here. So, for example, like here's an example. Let me just grab some of this. So you say yahai shahid, something like that, right? Atihaik shahid. So this would be a noun form, I think, for a picture that is drawn. So it doesn't happen often, but you will see sometimes that ka contracted to just the letter K. So while we've been looking at these green ones don't change a whole lot. You can go from yun to yunde, qudakh to qudkh. And then when we get to these pink ones, you can get sa to say. Now we're starting to think about like, how does the act of contraction work? And what you end up with is sometimes when you have two sounds, they blend and become a third, right? They change somehow. And that's what's going on here is change. And what's going on here is dropping. So those are the two things I think that can happen the most with contraction. Is either they enter each other, they engage and change, or they engage and it knocks out. Usually it's always going to be a vowel. Vowels don't have much meaning, I think, which is why they can sometimes go. The other thing that can happen but is rare is it will jump over something, which is hua. That's the main example of that one. Any questions?
Yeah, can you go back to the jump over?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what we get to in here, and we're almost there. Okay.
Okay,
Let's walk up to the jump over.
okay.
Okay. So again, thinking about this, we're going left to right. You know, so we preverb, object. We didn't do object because we just did a bunch of object pronouns, right? Like we know what these ones are. I don't know why some of these are faded. They had a plan. And we did thematic, and this isn't all of them, but these are the most common ones. Now we'll do conjugation. And when we're doing conjugation, now we're going to start talking about this interaction, right? Because the subjects are right here too, right? There's only these ones. And then you get the classifier. Now this is how things start to interact, is once you get to here. So coming to here, these are all of your conjugation particles, right? So that you have 1, 2, 3, 4 spots where these things can occur. So what I was trying to do with this is to say kind of what we call it and kind of what it's used for. Okay, and it's all in progress, so I might forget, like, why was this little number here? I don't know, maybe I'll tell myself later, maybe I'll figure it out. Okay, so you do have ga, qa, na, yu, qa. The first qa is conjugation. The second one is the mode. So you can have the mode with ga, qa, or na. Like it could pop up with them. It just does that. But basically, for these ones, ga, qa, and na, these are the ones that pop up. Oh, I didn't finish all of this. They pop up in the command form. And the na also pops up in the progressive form. So even though you've got like yanagut, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a na conjugation verb. It just pops up in that mode. Just like ga, qa is the future, right? And so I would say don't focus, except for the Irialis maybe, it's not so much about meaning, but it's just about the combinations. This one plus that one, hortative. This one plus that one, right? And so that's what we're going to start talking about now. But to get there, I thought it'd be good to talk about how they tend to contract with each other. So the Irialis means there's some disagreement with reality. It's in future, negative, comparative, like ye, ku, ge. That's a positive verb, but it's got the Irialis built in there. And some verbs just have them just built in. Like classic Tlingit speakers, when they want to command someone to try, they'll say kuna'aq. It's because the Irialis is built in there. Okay. The thing that does get confusing is some of them, like ga, qa, and na, right here, are part of the verb. When you say gashi, sing, qashat, grab it, adenagu, go over there. Those are the ones you're using those in the command, and it is that conjugation prefix. The zero is not on here because it's nothing, right? I could put it on there, but it's right there. But it doesn't affect the sound, so I didn't add it to the table. The perfective marker usually says, let's talk about this in terms of whether or not it has happened. Okay. So to start thinking about how contraction works, the red is saying remove the sound. And it's usually going to be a vowel, right? You can remove a vowel. So sometimes you take the out of the g and you get the letter K. All those futures that have kukwa or kukwa, that first K is a contracted ga. Ga, ga. Kukwa good. Right? And so we'll look at these, how they sort of line up to each other. The aerialis sometimes will just fall out. It just does. And then whenever you have the aerialis or the perfective, like you got them both here, when they encounter cha, they both jump over it. So you would say, adechwa good, I walked there. Kechwa cha, I'm not eating. Okay. When you remove the letter A from qa, you get an underline X. Qanech to art. Let's start walking. If you add qa and kha, you get qa. Iitke qadeshi. These are standard operations, just in terms of like, why is it switching to that sound? And it's not always about like, because this thing is that thing and that thing. It's just like, this is just the rule. This is how it goes. Pull that letter out of there, it's an underline X. It's just what it is. Pull that letter out of there, it's a K. That one makes more sense. I don't know. Okay. The letter N will contract to just, or the na will sometimes contract to just the letter N. I guess I should have done this, sorry. Oops. And then we get to the perfective marker. You get w. If you surround it by vowel, consonant, vowel, you'll get just the W. So like, oh, what's that one? A yaudagut, right? A yaudagut. So a yaudagut, you've got a, ya, ending with a. There's the perfective marker. D, di, consonant, vowel. That's where you get the M switch. It has to go vowel, consonant, vowel. Surrounding the perfective, you'll get the M. That does include things in the preverb. So you'd say, oh, I can't think of one right now. Okay. And then sometimes it contracts to just the letter Y, and that's usually going to be for second person, singular and plural. It will contract to just the letter Y sometimes. Here's jumping over. And then for, what am I doing here? Sorry, that's a mistake. For y plus I, for zeros, you should get iya. For non-zeros, you should get ye. We'll see these in action. This is the focus here is just like, what is the general sort of pattern with contraction? So I could start to see it as I start to look at these verbs. Questions on those? And we're going to see them in action. We're going to put them all together. We might have to finish on Wednesday. We'll see. We'll do one more. How does the subject change? Ch can contract to just the I guess I should put that A in there too. Right? And so you do see this, like hua. Hua is ch, or it's yu, ch, ya. Those strings, you get hua, right? T and I both follow the same rule. When the classifier has no vowel, they're long. If the classifier has a vowel, they're short. Tua, iya, tus, is, right? And then when you have y coupled with perfective, you get yi or ying, both positive and negative every time. That's probably enough. That gets us to the classifier. And then we start to look at these things, right? What happens in practice? Oh, this one I got to zoom way in. So this might be getting a little small. I'll take a look. If they are small, we can always zoom in and scroll back and forth. You get hua because you've got yu, ha, ya. Okay. But that's enough for now. Anything before we go?
Nay,
Ah,
if you go back to the prefixes in the fourth slot. Wait a minute. Fourth.
like here? This one?
No, it wasn't the thematic, it was the next one, the conjugation prefixes.
Oh, 1, 2.
Are the irialis and the perfective opposites? I mean, do they ever occur together?
Yeah, for a negative perfective. But we'll see what happens is they just merge. They just become one thing. That's a good question.
I got a quick question.
Yeah.
The word kanasiede, can you explain how you can make the term as far as it's in Hashaka? Kanasiede, kanasiye, cha kanasiye, or something like that, as far as.
Oh, okay.
Like as far as I know, cha kanasiye khasiku.
So there's a couple of these like far and deep, and then there's a couple others where you do end up getting the na gets activated here for some reason, and then you also have ya on there for the classifier. So na plus ya gets you na. Qa plus ya gets you qa, qatlan. It's deep. So first of all, far and deep. We're going to do measurements. I forgot to, we'll bring that in. I got a whole big thing on measurements, which just give us something different to think about for a while other than verbs. But the first switch that you see is, so you say nashe, gukashe for it's going to be far, kesh unashe, it's not far, which is also almost, which also can be contracted to klengli. But then you see wasa kunashe. So now you've got kunnashle, which is ka, na, ya, shle, which is wild. Comparative, irialis, na, popping up there for some reason. The classifier being ya. And now that's saying like, you know, specifying how far it is, right? So if you say 5 miles, that would be ye kunnashle. It's that far compared, you know, you're comparing it to something else. So as far as you can like walk, is something like that?
As far as I know, cha, or as far as we know, chaha kunasiyeyi khasiku, or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
This
like
is a phrase from Hashaka, I think.
let me see if I can find it. Curriculum, text, download. So we'll switch to Hashuka, and we're looking for kuna. You know what page it's on by chance?
And I'm looking at my notes. We did this in Nerds.
I think 460.
Into the biography, so. Is it maybe Hatu Inaguya?
Yeah, maybe.
It's Nakilan. Ďákukahaa Kuligadi Shua. It's
Oh,
one of the Bear Wife stories. Oh, I was reading you a line. Try
oh,
page 216, line 460.
gotcha.
Understood.
So you're seeing, is this kunqashyat? No?
That's not it.
Okay.
Yeah, we're
Nakil on.
Oh,
So
no.
it's the next version, I guess.
Gotcha, gotcha. Oh, ade
There.
nachyede ayachwasaku. Then, just towards, thus, kunashayede. And this specific distance, ayachsaku. And then we see the translation, this is as far as I know the story. So in this case, it is kind of metaphoric. So it's like saying, my knowledge of it extends that far.
so breaking down this verb, ade kunashiyede. Can you break that down and tell what each means?
Yeah, so here you do have, so coming through, so then, cha is cha ade, just this way, kind of, I guess. It kind of, those two sort of like combine. And then you do, this would be the first verb right here. And so, nashiye is far. Nashiye. And it's a little bit different, like, so then we got to switch it back here, and we see this verb as nashe. And so you see nashe, kukashe, unashe, kunashe. And then you got a slightly different version in here, which is kunashe. So let's go back. Now let's switch to this one. We're going to go look up shle and see if we get some sort of variation of it that matches this. So here we've got, oh, I know. Okay, hold on. Let me switch it back. Okay. What we have here is a bit perhaps of a spelling mistake, maybe. So, kunashiyede. So what you have, but it's actually probably just combining to make it a certain specific phrase. So you have kunashe, but you can also say kunashli. And this speaker is from Yucatan, so he probably would say kunashli. So then you have kunashli ye, ade verb ye, right? And so in that case, and when we talk about this ade verb ye thing, let's go back to our notes. So you've got ade verb ye. Okay, so this verb can be in the future, it could be perfective, it could be a whole bunch of different things. It does follow this rule where if there's a vowel in the classifier, it'll get I at the end. So you say ade khasiku, yeah, right? And but like ade yan khasqueen, yeah, it wouldn't get the I on that. But the second thing that it can do, and so basically what's happening is this verb I would probably say is ade ye kunna ye, right? And if you want to get more complicated, you can add de and dach onto the ye. So for example, a de yao ze a ye ye. So if we're talking about like a seal poking its face up through the water, yao ze a. So a de yao ze a ye ye. The place where it sticks, or in this case, the way that it sticks its head up. And then you can say, Yao ze a ye ye de. Oops. Which would be, let's go to the place where it stuck its head out. Like if you saw a seal poke up and then go under and you wanted to go over there. So you can say de and dach for these, which can be time or space references. They walked out of the place where they were picking berries. So that's what I think you have going on here. Ade ye kunashe ye de. So in that case, that is how far it extends. That's the way. I guess that's the way that my knowledge extends about it. Ade ye kunashe ye de ayachosaku. Oh, and then we do have a contraction right there. Ayachosaku. Okay.
So that means how far towards the place that I know?
It would mean, I guess, literally the way my knowledge extends, or the way it goes, the way my knowledge goes that far. That's the way my knowledge goes that far. It sounds awkward in English, but it's sort of like, that's just how it's working in Tlingit.
Goodness, sheesh.
Good question. Yeah, those are big things. Nakashan was a big speaker.
Cheers.
Cheers, Johan. Oh, I missed a couple things in the chat.
Sheesh.
And I'll put the notes up tonight.
Sheesh, Kunni.
Yakecha.
Sheesh.
See.
Get some rest.
You wish Christine. Kakwaak. I'm falling asleep on the job again. You have a picture of me on Zoom. Just.
And we'll all see you.
Good cheese.